Welcome into One-on-One with this guy, Jeff Dantzler. We've got the perfect 10 with us, 10-time national championship coach. She's still in beach mode. Suzanne Yoculan Leebern joining us from beautiful Sea Island. Suzanne, I appreciate you taking the time to be a part of our Georgia Legends feature here. And I want to start with something. We talked with Jack Bowerly last week. When you and he and Andy Landers, the whole gang, when you were just starting out and you think of all the accolades, the Hall of Fames, the national championships that you've won, what do you take from those early days when you guys were all just getting started? I know you've made a ton of money and had all this glory since then, but do you look back on those times when y'all were first getting started as some of your best memories?
Oh, absolutely. We had so much fun. First of all, we fought like cats and dogs because we were all so competitive. And we all shared an office, we all shared a big room. And it was just funny. It was, fun listening to Jack's tactics recruiting and Andy's, Andy can get wound up, as you know. He can get really wound up. But it was fun being around. Jeff Wallace joined us after that. And, he's an unbelievable coach as well. Just really good. We never had Manny with us. He was not in the same office complex, but we all got along. We all were really good friends. We still remain really good friends. And those were some of the best times for sure. Jack knew what he was doing. Andy knew what he was doing. I didn't know a thing. So, I had to just follow along. I'm glad I had those two as mentors, though.
Well, it helps being surrounded by other great people. And I think a lot of mistakes that probably some leaders in whatever field it may be make is trying to be the smartest guy in the room. I think sometimes if you're the dumbest person in the room surrounded by other smart people, that's going to make you look good. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
That's right. That's right. It does make you look good. I learned a lot from Andy. I used to sit in on his practices, go out to the Coliseum, just sit in the, sit up in the stands and watch him. And he had a way to get those girls to just respect him to the point where they would do anything for him. They just would put 100% out there on the floor every day. And I really learned a lot from him.
Suzanne, as a coach, I think for the great ones like you, to use the old football term, there's some kids you got a pat on the back, some kids you got a kick in the butt. You got different rules, you got different guidelines, obviously different athletes of different caliber. How in the world do you balance that? And what's the trick to getting to know different ways to motivate different kids?
Well, first of all, the rules don't change. For me, the rules never changed. It didn't matter if it was the top athlete on the team or someone that wasn't even competing. The rules were the same. I benched NCAA champion from SEC's one year for drinking. I benched a couple girls for missing class. They missed the first home meet because I had a policy in the fall. You cut class, you missed the first home meet. And they were top kids. And, they knew that the rules were all written down in black and white, and they knew they were going to be enforced fairly to everyone. And that was a really important part of coaching for me, was to be consistently fair. But in terms of coaching them different ways, absolutely, that's a must. I mean, some kids are just motivated by you just, giving them a lot of attention, and others don't want to be called out, and they just crumble if you do that. So I got really good at that. That's actually one of my strengths, was the relationship with the girls. And I put a priority on spending just as much time with the athletes that were injured and the athletes that were not competing or were vying for a spot than I did with the top girls. It really helps for team unity when everyone gets the same amount of attention and caring and concern from the coach.
Suzanne, I think to your point there, one of the things too that's so important, when you send that message, when your best kids have to sit because they didn't follow the rules, obviously everybody else on the team gets it. Oh my gosh, if she'll sit so-and-so, I better do things the right way too. And then also the flip side of that, how great is it when your best athletes, whatever the sport is, when they're doing things the right way with workouts, with school, with outside of the gym activities, when you've got your best kids, and I think about Courtney doing things the right way, that makes a coach's job so much easier, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely does. But it takes, it's a culture. It's a culture that you develop. And once you have that culture set and everyone knows the rules and follows them, and they develop a mutual relationship with the coach and teammates, one of respect. The culture just builds, and everything is contagious. So when you have kids following rules and doing the right thing, freshmen come in and they see that example from the upperclassmen, and they fall into line really quickly. And that's exactly what happened from 2005 to 2009, when we won 5 championships in a row. Was we had a culture going. We had a culture of excellence, and those athletes knew they were coming to Georgia to win big, and that's exactly what they did.
Georgia still with the most national championships. When you got to Athens and you were really building it from the ground up, Utah won, I think, the first 6 national championships. Would you have ever believed that Georgia would have passed Utah for the most national titles?
No, actually, Greg Marsden reminds me that they tied us, that they have 10 national titles as well, but they don't have 10 NCAA titles. They only have 9 NCAA titles. So they won a national title before there was any NCAA and before I got to Georgia. So I still think we hold the record. Georgia holds the record, and that definitely irks him. He's a good friend as well and a terrific coach.
Yeah, that's the thing too. They won the old AIAW championship, but for the NCAAs, we got them 10-9.
That's exactly right. And I remind him, trust me, he's funny. He's out in Utah, retired now with his wife, and he goes hiking a lot. And he said on one of his last hikes, he passed a barn, and on the side it said "Go Dogs," painted in big giant letters. So he sent it to me via text, and he was on, "I can't get away from you." It was funny.
Now, Suzanne, one of the things too that hit, and there is no passion like the Southeastern Conference. When we were at our height, at our heyday, which was virtually your whole career, Alabama comes up. So we had big rivals next door. Sarah Patterson was a rival coach. I know you guys might not have been the best of friends, but my goodness, the greatness of the 2 programs, did that rivalry bring out the best in both of us?
Oh, absolutely. It was like Andy and Pat Summit. I don't know how you can be that competitive with someone year after year and be friends, because you're recruiting the same athletes. I mean, when you're in the SEC conference and you're the top 2 programs, you are recruiting the same athletes. So there was a lot of competition that way as well. And then, of course, bad things are said, inaccurate things are said, things get repeated. And so that builds a little animosity there, especially if you're the one losing the recruit. But we didn't lose too many to Alabama. I used to say after the first 5 championships, then we went on our ride and had 5 in a row, and our record was so much better than Alabama's. I'm like, this is not really a rivalry anymore, because we've won so much more than you, and they didn't like that too much.
Suzanne, when you got started, of all the people I've interviewed, all the Georgia greats, you're definitely on the Mount Rushmore of great interviews. And I remember you telling me once that when I was asking about starting out in coaching, when you were young, and I don't know, it goes back to when you were a little girl, that you always dreamed about being a Rockette and being on Broadway. So kind of take us through your young years, your formative years, and how in the world you got to this legendary status as the greatest gym coach ever.
Oh my gosh. Well, yes, I actually started out as a dancer and did go to New York for my lessons and went and studied over there. At the same time, I was getting into gymnastics, and I don't like to do anything if I don't do it well. And I did dance well for a long time. I loved tap, and I did. I had a goal to be a Rockette, but they have so many restrictions. I mean, think gymnastics is hard. You had to look at dancers. My goodness gracious. I mean, you've got to keep up, and I just couldn't. So I got more into gymnastics after that, and then went to Penn State for gymnastics. And, again, it wasn't that I quit, because I don't quit anything that I know I can beat. But I just wasn't that level. You get to be an athlete at the college level, and you realize you're not that high school superstar anymore. And, that's what I had been, New Jersey state champion. And at Penn State, the girls were so good. I don't know, I sort of saw the writing on the wall, and I started coaching and just gave up competing to coach. And it was just a natural for me. I loved it from the very, very beginning. Ended up owning my own gym in Pennsylvania, and having a couple of kids that were national team members and top in the country, and got exposed to the best coaches in the country. And it just, it just caught on. I loved it. And So one of my friends actually recommended me to the Nebraska job. He said, you should apply for this job. And I'm like, I don't know anything about college, but I applied, and I was one of two finalists, but I didn't get the job. The Georgia coach actually got the job. So then my friend said, okay, you need to apply for the Georgia job. And I'm like, no way. I'm not going south where there's peanuts and Confederate flags. That's just not where I'm going. Jimmy Carter, no. At the time, that was my thinking, being a Jersey girl. But he sent my application down here. He actually sent my application, signed my name, did a cover letter. And I got a phone call from Liz Murphy saying she'd like me to come down for an interview. And I'm like, why? I didn't apply for the job. She convinced me, and that was the end of the story. I fell in love with Georgia. The opportunity really, really got me. I was like, okay, I think I can do great things here. I think we can really build this program. At the time, it was Utah and Florida, Michigan, but the Southeastern Conference really hadn't boomed yet as a conference for women's gymnastics. But it was at that point where it was really growing. And Coach Julie was thinking about actually dropping gymnastics, but because of Title IX, he couldn't. So I think, he just I was a necessary evil at the time. It was like, okay, we have to have gymnastics. And so I was a necessary evil and got the job. And, it was great because I was unbridled. It was at that time, it was, the three major college sports, football, basketball, and baseball. Sometimes I think it still is sort of irritating, but he left me alone, and that's when I do my best. That's when I do well, is when I don't have structure and I can run with, work and run with what I think it needs to be done. And that's exactly what happened. I just was nonstop. And, it's like a golden retriever. When they get pet, they go back for more. They love it. They go back for more. It's the same. You taste a little bit of success, you do well, and then you go back for more. You're energized. And it was like that with attendance. We had 2,000 and 3,000 and 5,000. And it made me work that much harder every time we had a little bit of success. I want more. I want more. And my husband, Don Leebern, asked me one time why I want. Are you there, Jeff? Hello?
Yeah. We just dropped for a second. It's okay. Just keep me. Yeah, we lost you at what Mr. Liebern said.
So Mr. Lieber said to me one time, he said, why do you want more championships? And I said, well, because I can win more. We can do more. So why not go for more? And we used to tease each other. I would always say, why do you want to buy another company? He goes, because I can. Why do you want another championship? Because I can.
I wanted to ask you too, Mr. Lieber, he was a great player on our 1959 SEC championship team. And that was before women's sports, obviously. Have you ever asked him, or has he ever said, I could have never imagined 10,000 people at a women's gymnastics or a women's basketball game or something like that? It has to be, from all the things he's seen in the world, that has to be quite an experience for him.
Oh yeah, I mean, first of all, he traveled to every single one of my competitions, every single one from 2001 till I retired in 2009. He only missed 2, and that was because of snowstorms. So he became a gymnastics fan, but he really just loved it because he knew I loved it. But he would sit in the audience and he would meet all the people around him and make fun of gymnastics and say, what is that thing they're doing on the bars? It's a Kalishnikov. I think it's a Kalishnikov. And he would convince everybody around him that the move on the bars was a Kalishnikov. But he had a lot of fun, and he definitely gave me a lot of balance. His whole attitude, his work ethic, and also some of his philosophy about Sicilian quote, big fires turn to ashes. And he lived that. He lived that mantra. He taught it to me because I would get all wound up, and all excited and demonstrative and upset with the gymnasts, and he'd say big fires turn to ashes. But getting back to the attendance, he couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that gymnastics was what it was. And he brought all his friends to the meets. They would sit up there and they would bet on who was going to stay on the beam and who was going to fall off. That's how they entertained themselves. Sort of funny.
Suzanne, you mentioned the crowds. That's fantastic. You mentioned the crowds too. I think that's one of the things for people around Georgia, the Georgia people, the banners, the championship success. They get 16 SEC titles, 10 national championships. That to me is only half the story. It's the following that you built. And from literally when there might have been 100 people at the Coliseum back in the early 80s to going over 10,000 and selling everything out. I think that's every bit as big and part of the story and the legacy, the crowds and the support that you built for the program.
You know what? I'm really proud of that because I feel like the championships belong to the athletes. And, you know, definitely us being successful in winning competitions helped with our growth in terms of spectator attendance. But I do think it was the way we did things. We really connected with the fans in the early days. I mean, back in 1984, 87, when people weren't doing it, our team was going into the stands after competitions, thanking people for being there, getting out in the public, you know, standing at grocery stores, handing out flyers. I mean, you could hear them on speakers at Kroger announcing the meet coming up. We put signs in lawns that there was a gym meet on Friday night all over campus and all up and down Millage Avenue. Everyone was really involved and all of the athletes really participated in building the attendance, but it really comes down to awareness. We just didn't have any awareness. And the biggest break for us is when we got the Gym Dog Show. And we got that Gym Dog Show and we were on cable TV every single week. It exploded for us. It just, again, it was the awareness. Gymnastics is the #1 spectator sport during the Olympics. So why wouldn't that, you know, also be the case in college? And, you know, these little girls, they need a sport that.
No, I agree.
And I think it just storm. Gymnastics became really relevant in the country with Mary Lou Retton and then later on Shannon Miller and some of the top gymnasts in the country. Now, of course, Simone Biles, and gyms were popping up all over the place with 800, you know, 1,000 little girls taking gymnastics lessons. And then you get the awareness going and our team is good on top of that. You know, again, it was the perfect storm to build and grow.
It certainly was. Just one final thing, how was for you and Mr. Leebern? And you guys have got a slew of grandkids. I always see your granddaughter Evie's a star young gymnast. How's the grandparent life for you?
Oh, it's the best. I honestly don't know what I'd do if I didn't have grandchildren because I need to feel productive and I need to feel like I have some kind of structure. So I tell my daughter, give me specific hours that I'm watching Evie, please, so that I have a structure. And I try to keep myself really connected to all of the alumni and all of their children. There's 140 gym dog. Well, I might have lost count by now. My last count, which actually was 2 years ago, there was like 145 gym dog grandchildren that I have, and I know all the names and I see many of them, and I'm actually godmother for a lot. They all call me Susu. So I'm Susu to all the gym dog kids, and saw a couple just last weekend and try to visit as much as I can. I still attend all the weddings and showers, and I got reconnected. You know, the 2 years I was able to work with Courtney, her first 2 years, got reconnected with some of the more recent athletes, Sabrina Vega, who just graduated, and, you know, some of the more recent gymnasts, and they were over at the house swimming in the pool the other day. So I really try to stay connected to all of them. That's what it's all about to me. Coaching is all about the kids and the relationships that you build, the lifetime relationships. So I feel really
it really is.
yeah.
And I think, and in the end, we all want the championships, but so much of it, it's about enjoying the journey, and you've certainly done that.
Oh, I absolutely loved every single minute. And sometimes I wish I was back there coaching, but then I have the grandkids and I'm like, no, I'm right where I need to be. My life is actually perfect. Dawn is doing well. The family's doing great. I've got a little grandson, Alex, that's 9, that's a little soccer superstar already. And, you know, as you mentioned, Evie's in gymnastics, and so is my other granddaughter, Adelie. And then we have a new baby, Lainey, who's only 8 months old. And you know, I get to take care of her quite often. So it's a wonderful life. And I owe it all to the University of Georgia, to my husband, Don, and my family who've supported me in my career, which really was very, very fulfilling and rewarding.
Suzanne, you're wonderful. And your big baby just turned 82 the other day too.
Oh,
So that's a belated happy birthday.
I can't believe he's 82 years old and feisty as ever. And just, you know, he's just such a gracious man. I love that about him. He's, you know, always helping the underdog. He's all for the underdog, and I just love that about him.
Well, Suzanne, you're the best. I know you're about to embark on a beach day with your girls. We can't thank you
Hopefully.
enough.
Shopping first.
Shopping and then going to the beach. It's a
Yes.
great life.
Well, tell Emily hello, and it's good to talk with you.
Thanks so much, Suzanne. We'll see you soon. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye, Jeff.
Bye-bye. See you.